the Bald Guy DIY. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips that you can use to get the most out of the next gig you buy on Fiverr. In the last couple of years, I've used the website Fiverr.com several times to find a freelance graphic designer or video editor, content creator, in order to get skills that I might not have or get work done that I might not have time to do myself. My experiences have all ended very positively, but sometimes along the road there were some bumps and hurdles to overcome. And so I want to share with you 5 tips that you can use to get the most out of your Fiverr experience and be the most satisfied with your final product. So without further ado, let's jump into it. The first thing to recommend, more than checking for prices or for checking for the star rating, is to really look through the examples that a particular seller offers that are a showcase of the work that they've done, their portfolio. Now, you might get caught up if you're looking for a graphic designer, for example, or a website designer or a coder. You might get caught up in their rating or the recommendations or reviews. But what I find is most helpful is to look through the examples that they offer of work they've already done and find something that aligns with the vision that I have for the product that I want created. If they've done something similar before, or if they use the kind of style and approach that really resonates with me, that's the kind of person that I want to contact. Once I find a few different sellers that have a style that engages me or something that fits the vision that I'm looking for, that's when I start looking at the things like price or ratings to separate one from another and ultimately come to a decision on who to approach first. My second tip is to message the seller before you buy the gig. Now, this might seem a little counterintuitive. Why would you message them before you've even committed to anything? But this is your chance to find out how well the seller communicates, how quickly they respond, and see if they'd be enthusiastic about the project before you even get started. What I've done in the past that's worked really well is to send them a description of the project that I'm looking for and to ask them if that's something that they would be interested in doing. How fast they respond and the kind of language they use in terms of enthusiasm when I get that response back tells me how good of a match they are for the project that I have in mind. Because Fiverr sellers come from all over the world, it also gives you a great idea of how well that person is going to communicate with you, if they speak the same language, and if they can communicate well enough that you can understand each other. Once the seller's told you that they're enthusiastic about the project and it's something that they're capable of, then you can move on to buying the gig, and you can do that with a lot more comfort knowing that it's probably going to go pretty well. The other thing that communicating with the seller ahead of time helps is finding the right option in the gig that you're looking for. A lot of sellers offer different levels, a beginner, intermediate, and advanced version of their product, and they also sell upgrades or updates or add-ons for the kind of products that you'd be looking for. You might want a basic website, but for an extra fee, they'll add on a shopping cart. Or you might want a graphic design, but for a little extra, they'll include all the source files and give it to you in all the formats that you might desire. So engage with the seller ahead of time before you commit your money, and you'll be a lot happier with the end result. If there's any red flags, move on to another seller and try that whole process over again. My third tip is that once you've bought the gig, be very clear and detailed about exactly what you're looking for in the finished product. For example, if you're searching for a graphic design artist and you want to have a logo designed or you want some artwork done, be as clear as possible as you can about the requirements and what you're expecting for the finished product, so they'll have a lot better idea of where to start from. It's a great idea to include example images that you've found from Google search or screenshots of other products that you've seen in a similar style or color scheme. Be as detailed as possible about things like the color scheme, the tone, the style, the feel of the whole piece, and try to communicate that in words that are easy to understand and to remove any misunderstandings that can occur. If you're not sure if the requirements you've laid out are clear enough to understand, try bouncing them off a friend or family member and ask them what they would do with the information you provided before you send it to the seller and have them interpret it. If someone who doesn't really know your project can read it and repeat back to you what they think you're looking for and it sounds good, then the seller's probably also going to be able to make those same judgment calls and give you something that you're a lot happier with. The other thing that sellers really appreciate is when you have a clear idea in mind and they don't have to try as many different concepts for what you're looking for. The more detail you can give them, the more closely the first draft will meet those requirements, and there'll be a lot less revision needed, which saves everybody time and frustration. These Fiverr gigs are typically quite cheap, especially when you think about hiring a local professional in your area who might charge you per hour or at a lot higher rate. Because of the competitive nature of Fiverr and people all over the world competing for those gigs, you really do find some great deals out there. I've had logos designed for $60 or $70 or other artwork done for even under $50. Find a seller that aligns with your values and ideas, that has a reasonably priced product, and treat them well. Give them the building blocks they need in order to create the finished product, and the whole thing will go so much more smoothly. The fourth tip I want to give you is to not be afraid to ask for revisions. One of the human nature things that we have is that when we've given somebody our requirements, we think we've spelled it out clearly enough, and then we get back something that doesn't look like what we expected. Sometimes our tendency is to shut down, shrug our shoulders, give up, and say, well, I guess that didn't work out. Most of the designers that I've worked with have not got it right on the first time, or the first draft that they've given me is a good start, but it needs quite a bit of work. Again, trying to be as clear as possible, giving them the feedback, things like the tone doesn't feel right, or the color scheme feels too happy, or too sad, or too boring, or too childlike. Whatever the situation is, give them feedback in a way that they can understand what needs to change, what kind of colors, all of those kinds of things, and you're going to get a better and better product. Most of the results that I've had have required several revisions, and after that, I can truly say I've always been happy with the finished product. If you're polite and you give a good feedback to the artist or the seller, you're going to get a good product and typically a great response back from them. We shouldn't have to talk about the do unto others as you'd have others do unto you, but the more friendly you can be and the more positive you can be in your feedback, typically the better response you're going to get back. But don't be afraid to tell somebody that you're not happy with something. I like it, but I don't really like the color scheme, or I feel like the design is too much in this way, too industrial, too lighthearted, whatever it is. Make sure that you communicate clearly what you don't like about it, and don't be afraid to say that it's not your favorite or it's not ready for the finished delivery. You want to see a few revisions first. My last tip is to give praise and feedback for a job well done. Now, sometimes you might think, I'm never going to see this person again. They live in an entirely different part of the world. What difference does it make? But it really does make a difference if at the end of the whole project, you can say what a great job it was, how happy you are with it, and communicate to them what great service that they provided. Even if you don't expect to order that same type of product from that seller again, be sure to be pleasant and kind. Unless it was an absolute train wreck of a response, give good feedback, give good reviews or star ratings, and build that person up so that they'll be more happy to work with you and other individuals who are looking for their work in the future. I also make sure at the end of every project to ask the seller if they would be willing to work with me in the future if I have other work for them. And thankfully I can say in all the interactions that I've had, the seller's always been quite enthusiastic and happy to work with me in the future. And I think that's part of being polite, giving them clear direction, and pushing them gently to make a better and better product so at the end, both you and they are very happy with the final product. If we turn it around and think about us being in the reverse situation where someone has come to us asking for us to do something, if they're a little demanding, it might be a little off-putting at the beginning, but knowing that they pushed you and you were able to deliver and make them happy is so much more fulfilling than having them wander away and then you hear back they weren't really that satisfied with the end product. Most sellers are happy to make revisions, happy to work with you in the future if you gave them a chance and if you were pleasant and cheerful to deal with. In most cases, if you've been engaging and quick to reply and give them instruction and direction, they're really happy to work with you again in the future. After all, they're getting paid for the service they're providing you. Those are the 5 tips I wanted to share with you today about using Fiverr.com. It's true for a lot of other freelance websites or freelancers even in your local area that you might use. There's a lot of things that you can put into practice there to get better results. If you tried it and it didn't work out, I'd encourage you to try again next time you need something that you might not have the time or skills for, and just see if some of these tips work out for you. Let me know in the comments what experience you've had with Fiverr.com or with other freelance websites, and let me know what you would do differently and if these tips were helpful to you. If you want to send me an email, my information's in the description below. And if you like this kind of content, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel as I post new content every weekend. Until next time, in all your DIY projects, even those that you need to farm out to somebody else, don't be afraid to be bolder.